Welcome back, Mr. T here. This is episode 10. We're going to learn how to do particle systems. So currently, right now, all that happens when I run into my hazards, like my spikes or my rising laser beam, I get frozen and then I respawn after 2 seconds using that invoke method, which is really cool, but it's not a very exciting way to die right now. And we could do a death animation, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for us, what I see a lot in 2D games is we're going to make our character explode with a particle system. So particle systems or particle effects are really cool. They're great for fire and explosions or water or things like flowing and falling. I can do snow, which I'll show you right now. I created a special effect and I'll show this later in another video. But this is a snow effect using a particle system. And I'm going to attach that to my virtual camera. And now you can see I have snow coming into my scene. So it's falling from above here, and we can see there's different sizes. They're kind of wiggling through the air like a nice soft wind. Really cool. And this is all through a particle system and one piece of pixel art. That's it. And a pixel art piece that probably took me about 10 seconds to make. Really easy. So I'm going to remove that and let's get started. So we want to create a particle system. So we're going to right click in our hierarchy and we're going to go down to effects and you're going to choose particle system. You're going to get this weird thing showing up in your scene and it's kind of hidden, but it is showing up behind my backgrounds, and we're going to fix that in a second. First though, let's rename this system to Death FX. Okay, Death Effects. And we're going to place that child it to our player because I want it to follow wherever my player goes, and it's only going to play when we hit a hazard. But for now, for testing, we're going to see it continuously here. Now, it's not in the right spot, and that's easy to fix. I'm just going to go to the transform here, and it's going to reset it at the 0 point of my character, of my player, because it's been childed. Okay, let's take a look at this inspector because particle systems have a lot of settings. Okay, so it's going to start off with most of what you're going to control is right here. And then you have a lot of optional stuff. Emission will already be clicked, shape will be defaulted, and you'll have the renderer turned on. So right away, right now, I'm going to make a few tweaks to the renderer first. So I go down here and click my renderer. And yours is going to say sprite default, or it's going to be default particles, probably what yours is going to look like for now. And you want to use sprite's default. The sprite lit you shouldn't see unless you have the URP universal render pipeline installed. So right now you're going to see the sprites default, and that's just making a square. And then all we need to do here in this area is we want to change the sorting layer. Okay, just like all my other art, we want to make sure we're controlling the draw order. So I do want it on the level, and now it's going to kind of clip through my walls, which I don't really want actually. I want this to go in front for my effect. So I'm just going to move the order in this layer above 0. So I'm just going to move it to 5, and now we can see our particle system is going on top of the level. It's going behind the laser. You could tweak that if you did include the laser. Now, I don't want just this white square. You can do a lot with this white square. Don't get me wrong. I've done plenty of things with just a simple little white square as my particle effect, or the kind of that other particle effect sprite that we saw, which was kind of faded. This one does look kind of pixel, but it's a big giant square, and I could shrink it down to make it look like a single pixel. But what you can do is bring in your own custom pixel art of what's being instantiated, all these little particles being created. I can go to texture sheet animation. Let's turn that on, and you got to take it off grid, and we're going to go to sprites. And now I can drag in a sprite here. Now I've already created this. I made a really simple little kind of particle little circle here. I know it's not a perfect circle because of its pixel art, but this is just 8 by 8. So I brought that into Unity already in my art folder. So here it is here. Here's my little round dot. I've already changed my settings. Okay, so I've changed it to 8 pixels per unit was the size that I did. I switched it to point no filter and made sure it was no compression and then applied it. Now we can go to my depth effect and I can drag that onto this sprite. So let's drag that and you're going to see my particle effect. Now it's instantiating my little round, like kind of circular pixel sprites. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to close that off. I'm not going to do anything with that. Rendering, I'm not going to do anything with that either. We're going to go up to shape first before we do a few more stuff. So shape here is the shape of how it's being emitted. Now, it says cone. You might look at this. This doesn't look like a cone. Well, it's a cone that's sideways because this is cone is technically a 3D shape. So if I go out of 2D mode, we can see it is coming out in a cone shape in the Z direction towards us. Okay, and that's just the default. It works for what we're doing, but we're actually going to go more to a 2D, and there's lots of versions that are 2D here, like a circle. And so we're going to apply that, and now I can see that it's just going in a circular motion in the direction I want. So I'm going to go with the shape of a circle. You can change the radius here where it's instantiating, so I can spread this out more. Okay, you can see that circle. Let's go back to 2D here so we can see it. So now they're kind of blowing up further away. I'm going to want this radius really tight to my player because I want it like almost, because again, like I said, it's like my player will be exploding. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that down to 0.1. So I'm happy with that shape. You can play with other things if you want, but for now, this is going to work good. Let's close up the shape. Now, this is where we're going to tweak quite a few things. Now, this is not going to be a looping particle effect when we're done. I just want it to play once and explode a bunch of cool particles when I hit a hazard. So I will be turning this off eventually, and then I'll just be testing it with a single play. So this single play is now set for a duration of 5 seconds. Once we hit 5, the particles will stop instantiating. So I'm going to take this duration, because it's going to be an explosion, I'm going to bring it down all the way to 0.2 seconds. Okay, I'm going to turn looping back on just so we can see what this still looks like. All right, now start lifetime. This means how long are my particles going to last? I'm going to leave that at 5 for now. Okay, but start speed, I don't want to leave at 5. Okay, what makes these really cool is not just changing the speed. So just, I'll show you what these look like. So start lifetime, if I increase this right now, all these particles are disappearing after 5 seconds. If I turn this down to 1, they disappear right away. And if I went up to 100, well, they would go on and on for 100 seconds. So my lifetime, and what I'm going to do is I want it to be a bit variable. I want it changing. So I love using random between two constants. So when I go between two constants, I want it to last between 1 to 3 seconds. Okay. It changed that one on me. Let's go 2 to 3 seconds. Okay, that's how long I want my particles to last. Their start speed of 5 right now. I'm pretty okay with that. Actually, this is going to be a little bit more explosive. So let's maybe turn it up to 10 for now. All right, start size. Now, 3D start size, this is not 3 dimensions. We're in 2D. So we're going to look at start size here. Now, if I zoom in, this is a little bit big for my liking. I don't want my start size to be 1. I want something more closer to 0.5. But again, I'm going to randomize this between two constants. So I'm going to go between 0.2 and maybe 0. Do I like 5? No, let's go 0.4. Okay, so a little bit randomization on the size of my particles there. Okay, moving down here, start rotation. I do like to randomize that between a couple positions, so then it does rotate my pixel to make it look a little bit more random. So I'm going to choose that between two constants. I'm going to randomize that between 0 and 90 degrees is all I need to make the rotation change. I'm just going to go down let's keep moving down here. So flip rotation, we don't need that. Start color. I'm going to play around with the colors later. So I'm going to leave this color as white. You're going to see why, because we're going to change it down here with the color over the lifetime of the particle. So let's leave it starting as white. And it's good to always bring in white particles because you can control the color in your particle system. Gravity modifier. I do want that. I'm going to go about half gravity. Okay, and you'll see why with this explosion, I don't want it to just fly into space. My effect, I do want it to kind of arch. And right now, everything else here, I'm going to keep the same except for I don't want it to play on a wake. Okay, I want to control this with code. And we will unclick looping in a second. I'm going to show you an example of that. The only other thing is simulation space. If it's set to local, it means these particles are going to follow my player wherever he is. So if I move my player, let's just move it here, the particles move with it, which that's not what I want. I do want the particles to explode from the location of my death and not follow my player like if I have the respawn. So let's switch that from local to world. And now it won't follow. If I go back to my player now and move it, you can see those particles do not move with my player. Okay, let's get moving. Lots of things to play with here. I'm just going to touch on a few of the key ones. Moving down here, let's now change the emission. So right now I have this looping, and so what happens is its max particles is 1,000 over the lifetime of 0.2 seconds, but it's only a rate of time of 10 particles per second. Let's turn this up to 300, and now we got something crazy happening. This is when I'm going to turn off the loop, and I'm just going to hit play to see what my explosion looks like. And right now, I really like that. Okay, the lifetime is 2 to 3 seconds. Let's zoom out a little bit. Boom, they fly out, and then a lot of them start to disappear. That's way further than I need it, but that's kind of what I'm going for anyways. So let's now keep that emission where I have it there. Again, you can play with bursts and intervals of bursts here if you want to try that out, but for us, we're good to go. Now this is where you can really make things look pretty cool. You can change the speed over lifetime. We're using gravity and I don't want to touch that. You can modify speed or velocity a few different ways here. The lifetime of your emitter speed, so changing how the emitter speed over the time of the particle, your forces if you're using rigid bodies, color over lifetime. That's one we're going to use for sure. So let's open that up. And again, I'm just going to click on this color, and now we can do lots of cool stuff here. These two top buttons let me control transparency. So I tend to always, with particle effects, like to fade out my transparency. So if I hit play again, we can see them fading out now instead. Okay, so I like that. Also in my color, I want to start with the same color as my player. So let's go and sample that. We're going to grab that. Whoops. Let's go back here. Oh, it already had this saved. So let's go back to this preset here. We're going to turn that down. There we go. Then let's go pick the color here because I already did it in my when I was trying this out. Let's select my color. Let's go sample it right from my player here. So let's grab this little pink color right here. There we go. And now let's press play. And now my particles are the same color as my character, which is what I was going for. Now I could change color over lifetime too. So I could go from this light purple maybe to a, let's go into my purple kind of window here, and we'll get a little darker over time, like it's burning away, or I could go lighter over time. Now let's go darker. Let's go with a darker purple over time here. Let's try that out and then press play. We're a little bit too zoomed in to see this, but they do get darker. Now I can see my speed is too much at the beginning here. So my start speed of 10, I'm not liking that. Let's turn on looping so I can see it here and press play. Let's turn it down to 2. Nope, not enough. Let's change that to 5. Okay, I like that. 5 looks good. So when I hit play, boom, I get that explosion. Okay, I like that effect a little bit more. So that's color over lifetime. You can change the color by the speed of your particle. You can also add more colors, by the way. Size over lifetime. I do like doing this one, and this is an easy one. So I'm just going to go size over lifetime, and I like to use the graph curve here. And you see you have a bunch of sample ones. So this is going to make it go from 0. It's going to get bigger over time. So from 0 to 1 over time. I want to start big and go small. So I'm going to pick this curve going from big to small. And now if I hit play, they shrink off and fade out, which is kind of like what an explosion kind of looks like as things burn away in the air. Okay, so let's close that. I like that. Size by speed, rotation. I like adding rotation always to my particle systems, and an angular velocity of 45. So that's going to just make them spin a little bit in the air. A nice little effect. Everything else I don't want to add. Noise is really cool. I add that to the snowflake effect to make things kind of float in the wind. I'm not going to add noise to this, but that does kind of take away the linear or the curvature. It'll kind of make things have a little bit of randomness as it wiggles in space. Collision we don't need. You could turn that on. Let's just take a look. If I turned on collision and press play, right now I don't have that. I don't have it deciding what it collides with. So I'm going to leave that off for now. Collision, if you do turn on, is really heavy on the processor and sometimes doesn't look very good in WebGL games. Triggers, sub-emitters you can do. You can try that. Lights and trails and all kinds of cool stuff. If I turned on trails, it would look terrible until I brought in a material. You might want to bring that in. Almost the default purple matches, though, I'll be honest. It doesn't look totally that bad. But I'm going to keep it off for now and leave this particle system as is. So I like this explosion right now. Maybe I'm just going to turn up my particles on that explosion a little bit more. So let's go back to emission. Let's turn that up to 400. Press play. Yeah, I like that little explosion for my death. Okay, here we go. Now, how do I make this work? How do I make this play when we're playing our game? So let's move this over here, and we're going to control this where we are controlling where we're detecting the death and the respawn, which was on our player, and it was called the death collision. So let's open that up. And we're going to need a couple quick public references. We're going to need to reference this particle system. So that's really easy, particle system, and we're going to call it the death effects. Okay, and then we're also going to reference the sprite renderer. Okay, we want to reference, and we're just going to call it sprite. We're going to reference these two things because when we explode our character, we don't want the sprite to stay there. We need it to turn off and just have our explosion. So let's go do this. It's only a couple lines of code. It's really easy. So first thing first, we're going to turn off our sprite renderer. So sprite.enabled and make it false. Okay, so we're going to add that right here. You could put it anywhere in these lines of code, but I find it makes sense to do it once we've turned off the collider and before the invoke. And then we're going to also play the explosion. So we're going to access the death effects, and we can do a few different things with this, but the most common one you're going to always use is just play. Is the play method. Okay, and that's going to play it. Now we want this to also happen when we hit the trigger of our laser. So I'm going to paste that right here. And of course, when we respawn, I want to be able to see the player, so we're going to need to turn that back on. So let's switch sprite enabled to true when we respawn. And now we'll go back into Unity. Make a couple references on this script when it updates to the sprite render as well as the death effects particle system, and it's should work just fine. So death effects, I'm going to drag that, and then I'm going to take my sprite render and drag that on, and let's test it out. Let's see if I explode. All right, here we are. Let's make my game a little bit bigger so we can see it better. Okay, here we are. Let's go hit the spikes. Boom. Looks great. Respawn resets my laser. Okay, let's go test it on the laser here. So we're going up and then we slip and fall. Poof, explodes, resets me back. Okay, loving it. All right, so that's a particle system. It's working great. Here's my challenge to you. Right now, we have our death particle system. Let's use the same idea for a particle system, but let's create some type of celebration up here of particle effects, fireworks, explosions, whatever you want to do. But it's really easy now that you kind of understand, hopefully, a little bit of what's going on. So my challenge is you're going to create an empty game object, okay? And you're going to add to that a box collider 2D. And then really simply, you're going to edit that box collider, okay, so that you enter it when you hit the top of your level. When you enter that, you're going to use a trigger because we don't want to collide with it. We're going to make this a trigger, on trigger, enter, and you're going to play the victory the victory particle system, whatever that's going to be. You can do all kinds of stuff. So we need to celebrate winning the game, and we're going to do a lot more with how do we actually control winning the game with menus in a game manager and scene management, and get some UI happening to really fine tune this game to make it a complete game from start to finish. That's it for this video. We'll see you next time.